Hello and welcome to Tech Deal's detailed Windows installation and setup guide. Did you recently build a new computer? Have you installed a new drive and you want to do a completely clean install of Windows but you're not entirely sure how to do it? You've come to the right place. Now we're going to be doing this today on the recent $1,000 Ryzen 5 2600 computer build that I put together in a previous video. Link to that playlist down in the description below if you're interested in checking it out. It's a very nice machine, 16 gigs of RAM, AMD RX 588 gig graphics card, Ryzen 5 2600, loads of RGB, a beautiful B450 motherboard, great RGB case, 80 plus gold power supply. Anyway, details are down in the video description below. This Windows install guide, however, is not just for this. Maybe you have an Intel i5 8400 or an i7 7700K. Perhaps you have a Ryzen 7 2700X, or perhaps you have a budget machine like a Ryzen 3 2200G. You can use this video too. 90+% of everything in this video is generic to any Windows installation. We're going to do Windows activation using a new key that we bought online. We're going to do the video driver download, which basically is either AMD or NVIDIA. And we're going to do several other things as well. So this is going to be a long video, but it's meant to be a step-by-step help guide for anybody who maybe either hasn't done it in a while or has never done it, and you're a little intimidated behind the idea of going, great, now I've got this computer, what do I do? The one thing I'm not going to show you in this video is how to make the actual Windows 10 installation USB thumb drive itself. I will link to a previous video in the description below where I've already done that. So if you don't have a USB thumb drive to install Windows from, well, go watch that video first if you don't know how to make one. But once you've got that, you're good to go to watch this video. If you would like to see the detailed build guide, and that's 50 minutes long, by the way, of this computer, that will also be linked down below in the playlist for this system. The first one is the parts overview, the second one is the detailed build guide, and this is sort of video number 3 in the series. You will also find linked down below all of the parts that were used in this computer to both Amazon and Newegg. Those are affiliate links. Using them when you shop does support the channel at no extra cost to you, and that support enables me to make these long, detailed guides, which I hope are helpful and useful to you. There is also a link down there to SCD Key, which is the company that I get all of my Windows keys from. You're going to see that in the video as well. If you want an amazing value on a Windows 10 key that will activate online directly with Microsoft and link the key straight to your Microsoft account without any fuss or muss, check that link. I'll put it up near the top of the video description in this video for you. It's less than $14. That is a heck of a deal. In any case, enough talking, on with the video. The first thing you should see after you put your USB thumb drive in the computer and turn it on is this screen right here. Now, a few machines won't. You might have to go into the BIOS and change the boot order or select boot from removable device. However, I did not on this machine. I put it in, turned it on, and it came straight here. Click the first couple of prompts. You don't have any other choice. For now, we're going to choose I don't have a product key. You can put one in if you have one, but if you don't have one or it's not handy, then just go ahead and skip it. If you skip it, you'll need to choose your operating system. I choose Windows 10 Pro on all of mine because I buy my keys from SCD Key, as I mentioned before, link in the description. I'm going to show you that here in a couple of minutes. So we choose Windows 10 Pro, and then you have to accept the terms and license agreement. After this, you then have to choose Upgrade or Custom. We're going to choose Custom because there's nothing on the machine. We're not upgrading from an older operating system. You generally wouldn't use this method to do that kind of upgrade. Now, which drive you install on is going to depend upon how many drives you have, which is your SSD, etc. In this case, the larger SSD, the gigabyte, is drive 0. You can reorder how these appear in the system BIOS. Just hit next once you've selected your drive. Windows will create all the partitions. You don't need to. It's worth noting that if the drive you want to install on is not listed as drive 0 here, you may want to go into the system BIOS and manually reorder in software or physically change the cables to make the drive you install on drive 0. Sometimes, depends upon your system, if you install on drive 1 or 2, Windows will create small boot partitions on drive 0 to enable the system to boot and then to run Windows off the other drive, and it will reorder the drives in Task Manager in Windows. Now, this is no big deal. Your C drive is still your C drive. However, you will not be able to remove drive 0 and have your system still boot because the boot partition's on it. And if you take out drive 0 to install a larger drive in the future, for example, you'll find your system doesn't boot. So it's much easier now if you just make sure that whatever your boot drive is, your main SSD, whatever that's going to be, is drive 0 to avoid the creation of additional partitions. Now, I'm going to accelerate this here because this just takes, but it really doesn't take very long. What you've been watching so far is in real time. I've made 0 cuts and 0 slowdowns. You can see we're already at 14%, but there's no need to keep voicing this over, so we're going to skip ahead. I cut about 1 minute and 20 seconds of footage out of there, so this really installs very quick. Modern SSD, modern thumb drive, no big deal. There's a little bit of updating, a little bit of stuff that has to happen here. This doesn't take very long. It's then going to finish up and reboot. Most systems should boot right to your SSD at that point and not the external thumb drive, even if you have it installed. However, once it actually finishes up and restarts, which it's doing right here, go ahead and take the thumb drive out during the restart so that it doesn't get confused and it just boots right to your SSD. Now, about 30 seconds of footage was cut there, and at this point, it's just going to start to get main system devices ready. This is where Windows is detecting all of your boot devices, device drivers that need to be set up and installed. It's checking for an internet connection, which I do have. I did plug in the Ethernet cable, and it might download a critical update or two. In fact, you can see here, well, it's really quick. That's all real time, no cuts there, because this is a Ryzen 5 2600. We've got a very nice Gigabyte UD Pro SSD. It really is quick. The entire install process before trimming was only an hour, and that includes drivers and reboots and video drivers and motherboard drivers and even the RGB software. And that's start to finish, and that's me leaving time to make these cuts. So this really doesn't take that long once you're used to it and once you know what you're doing. Another reboot and 35 more seconds pulled out of the video. And now it's going to ask us what region we're in. Most of these prompts are self-explanatory. We're in the United States. Yes. It's then going to say, is this the right keyboard layout? Well, for me, I'm in the US, so yes. Do I want to add a second keyboard layout? No, I don't. Skip. About 15 seconds taken out there. Do you want to set this up for personal use or organization? We're going to choose personal use. Windows 10 Home won't show the screen. This is for setting up to business domains. We're going to choose 99.9% of you will choose for personal use. This is where you type in your username for your Microsoft account. It can be an Outlook address, it can be a Gmail, it can be a phone number. You can choose offline account if you want, but there's a variety of reasons of why I don't recommend it. I personally use Microsoft accounts, and I think you should too. Set up a PIN. It's more secure. It's much easier to log in with. A 4-digit code. Once you've got that done, now it's going to ask you to link to your phone. Yeah, no thanks. This I don't do. There's no need to link to your phone. Well, you can if you want to. I click do it later and then don't. Then it's going to say, do you want to protect your files with OneDrive? Save your files to this PC or also save them to OneDrive? Do you want to make Cortana your personal assistant? Yes or no? I choose no. It's up to you. And then choose privacy settings. There's a lot of settings here. You can turn them on and off. These I personally leave on because, frankly, everything else tracks you anyway. So Microsoft might as well. Since, after all, if you use Gmail and Google and Google Search, all of that tracks you. So I I've learned to live with that. At this point, it's simply doing the final Windows installation and set up drivers in place, final configuration options, etc. Some machines here will need a further reboot for critical updates. It may download some machines won't. It depends slightly on which version of Windows you're using, what devices you have attached, what it did during the first setup routine, and what it's doing here. But I really do think you should have your computer connected to the internet when you do this because it'll just make sure that you are fully patched and updated for the critical stuff before you get to the Windows desktop. That does not alleviate you from running Windows Update, mind you. You still have a bunch of updates to do because if you run an unpatched Windows system, well, frankly, I don't know what to tell you. That's just crazy if you're online with it. I guess if you're offline and connected to nothing, it maybe matters less. But if you're on the internet, you do need to be fully patched and updated. What you're watching here is in real time. I did not make any cuts to this initial setup where it says it might take several minutes. Here we are, it says almost there, and the desktop's going to be here in just a second. And it really is that fast, except for a couple of cuts which I called out and made very obvious with a swipe across the screen. What you just watched was in real time. So it does not take long to install Windows 10 clean. It takes longer to download drivers and go through that than it does anything else. Windows Update and then the video drivers really take the longest. The first thing I want to do is go into Windows Update and turn on updates for other Microsoft products. This is important because there are certain things such as the Visual C++ updates and some other things. We go to the Start menu, we click Settings, we come down here to Update and Security, we'll maximize this, and then we're going to click Advanced Options. And in my opinion, this is important to check because the runtimes need to be updated as well. There are other options down here that are only visible because this is Pro. You can turn off automatic updates for 35 days. You can turn off major feature updates for up to a year, which you cannot do on the Home Edition. And considering that it's under $13 to get a licensed copy of Windows 10 Pro that activates online, again, I'm going to show you that in a minute, why would you run anything other than Pro? I mean, there's like $1 difference between Home and Pro. And at least Pro gives you the option, if you're traveling, if you need your machine to be stable for a week, if you're using it for something, you can turn off updates and the system won't bother you for 35 days. That's all updates. And then major features and major system updates like the next version of Windows can actually be delayed for an entire year. So if you want your system to be stable and run 2 weeks behind updates so that you're not getting like a day one problem, you certainly can do so. This needs a cut because this takes a little bit of time to download and initialize all of the big cumulative updates. But let this run. Don't try to use your computer while it's running. And then when it's ready for a reboot, it's going to ask for one. That was nearly 8 minutes of footage cut out. The drivers did install, the basic video drivers installed. That's not the main AMD drivers. We still have to do that. But if you want to know why the screen looks different, it's because Windows does put a basic driver just to get you the standard desktop resolution in place. That should happen automatically while Windows Update is running. Hit the restart button and we'll be right back to Windows. 45 seconds of Windows reboot and update time, back to the Windows desktop, and now we want to run Windows Update one more time. Probably nothing to find, but in my experience, running it twice does make sense. Go back to Settings, Update and Security, and in fact, you notice right here it says that. So go ahead and run Windows Update one more time. It may just be a Windows Defender update that it downloads. It may just be an odd driver for some piece of hardware it didn't catch the first time. In fact, there you can see right there, update for Windows Defender, antivirus, anti-malware platform. I use Windows Defender. I don't think there's any reason to go spend money on Norton or McAfee or anything else. Microsoft has done a fairly good job with the built-in antivirus and anti-malware programs, and that's what I use in Windows 10. With that update out of the way, time to download Chrome. Now, this is a personal choice. You certainly can run Edge if you want, or Firefox or something else. But me personally, I basically use Edge to go download Chrome, and once I have Chrome, then I don't look at Edge anymore. But that's me. So we accept and install, we hit run. It's going to come up with a pop-up. Yes, we want to run it. We can close the web browser behind it. On your marks, get set, go, downloading. That's pretty cool. So Chrome's going to install, and this, as you can see here, is really fast. I'm not going to edit this. I want you to see it in real time so you can see just how fast this computer really is. I'm not going to show you the sync part because that's a Chrome issue instead. What we're going to do instead is download the AMD drivers. We are first going to download the display drivers. There are two sets of AMD drivers to download here. We have a Ryzen 5 2600 with a B450 board, and we have an RX 580 graphics card. And this is an important distinction because you want both the motherboard drivers and the video drivers. Yes, basic video drivers and basic motherboard drivers are installed by Windows. You don't want to use either one of them. Better drivers for your system are provided by AMD. So we're going to do the video drivers first. And there's smart screen saying it can't be reached. Now it's fine. We downloaded from AMD.com. You can see it in the title bar. Yes, we want to run it. And again, this is all real time, no cuts. Close the web browser, hit install, and you can see how fast the Ryzen 5 2600 extracts the AMD Radeon video drivers here, the Adrenaline edition. It's actually pretty quick, all things considered. The Ryzen 5 2600 may not be the top-of-the-line CPU. It's not a Ryzen 7 2700X. The Gigabyte UD Pro SATA SSD may not be an M.2 NVMe drive, but for 90+% of computer users, these are by far fast enough, and they provide great performance for the money. The value in this build is huge. So we'll just watch this in real time because why the heck not? Extracting, I know it's exciting. Now I have to say something because it's busy doing that. Waiting. talking. There we go. Now it's in real time. It's only a minute, I know. We have to accept our user agreement because everything has a bloody... Raise your hands in the audience if you actually read the end user license agreements to any of this stuff, to Windows, to the video drivers, to Chrome, to anything else. I don't. We're going to hit custom install because I'm going to mouse over and I'm going to show you that none of this stuff is actually installed. Yes, Windows has put a basic driver, but none of this stuff is properly installed. So we do want to go ahead and install all of it. Now, this I'll trim just because otherwise you guys will be sitting here for a 30-minute video. But it is pretty quick, all things considered. 1 minute, 30 seconds of footage removed there while it was going. Do we want to install Relive or not? Relive is the capture and streaming program that AMD provides. I don't personally use it, so we're going to click skip. You can certainly install it if you want to, but it's just not something I use. We do have to do a restart, and I'm going to click the Keep System Up to Date to update the video drivers automatically. Let's reboot. We'll be right back to Windows. With less than 1 minute of footage cut out, we're right back to Windows. The video drivers are properly installed. Now it's time to go download the motherboard drivers. This Experience AMD thing comes up automatically. That's fine. Click support. We're going to go ahead and use this, and we're going to go to AMD motherboard drivers. Whenever I read online that people have, quote, trouble with their new Ryzen system, or they got a new Ryzen, they go, man, this doesn't seem to run as smoothly or as fast, or I have a problem with my sound, or I have a problem with whatever. Did you install the AM4 chipset drivers? Yeah, basic drivers are included, and frankly, for Intel systems, you don't really need to do this because Microsoft has supported Intel for so long and they haven't changed in a while. But for AMD, I would download and install these because it includes customized drivers for this specific hardware rather than generic stuff. My opinion, but I find the system is a little bit snappier and a little bit nicer to use when these are installed. Just like the video drivers, we have to say yes here, and we're going to close this, and we're going to hit install. It does the decompression first, which again doesn't take very long, just like the video drivers didn't. The actual install part doesn't take very long either because there isn't a big program behind it. It's just putting in a couple of basic drivers for the PCI Express lanes and the chipset and the basic functions that come with your motherboard. All of that right there was in real time. Hit accept and install. I'm going to click on what's checking for new drivers. You currently have, what is that, 18.10.2 installed. Checking. There we go. 18.10. We're going to go ahead and check that, but then we're going to click on local driver. You might be tempted to think, well, why do this? We're going to hit custom. I want you to see why. I'm going to mouse over each of these. Current version not installed. Current version not installed. PCI driver not installed. This driver, not installed. So there are other drivers than just the main one, and that's why we're doing this. The balanced power plan, the one that's designed for Ryzen that makes it efficient in power use, as well as it's a balance between high performance and the balance plan that Windows by default comes with. So look, it's already done. Absolutely quick. Hit restart, and we'll be right back to Windows. Here we are back at the Windows login. I kid you, there was less than 30 seconds cut out from in between that spot in the recording. This thing reboots really, really quick. Go ahead and clean off these things. Now, what we're going to do now is activate Windows. This is an important, well, actually, we're going to run Windows Update and check again, but there won't be anything found. It's fully up to date now. It's time to activate Windows, and I'm going to show you how to buy a Windows 10 key using SCD key, using my link, which both gets you 12% off and supports the channel because it's an affiliate link. Skipping ahead to the SCDQ website, you can see here $14 for Windows 10 Professional. We will click Buy Now, and this is where we're going to put our promo code, which is also down in the description below, so you don't have to remember it. $12.32 for a copy of Windows 10 Pro that will activate online with Microsoft. No funny telephone activation, no offline activation, no program needed. This really will activate straight with Microsoft and link straight to your digital account. Now, this sequence, for obvious reasons, was heavily edited to take all the personal information and order details out, but you really do get the key instantly. Wait here, it beams you straight to this page. Click on View Keys and Codes for your order. Click Get the Key. It'll pop it up. I have it hidden, of course, because it's mine, but copy it from here and then close this window, and of course, behind it is going to be the activation page. Click Change that product key. paste it here, hit next. It'll say, do you want to activate Windows? Hit activate. It's doing this directly online with Microsoft. Take a look at the top. Windows is activated with a digital license linked to your Microsoft account. This works directly with Microsoft online using your genuine Microsoft account. No fuss, no muss. Most of my machines are activated this way, and for $12.32, that's a deal. Now that we're activated, we can customize our desktop, change toolbar settings, change what's on there. You couldn't do that before. Without being activated, there's a number of customizations and things that you simply can't do. So that is very, very nice to have. Here I'm just making some changes, changing my default web browser to Google Chrome, changing default mail to Google Chrome. Those are personalized choices, but that's how I set up the system. Now we're going to go to Gigabyte's website. Now this is going to be customized slightly depending upon what motherboard you have. We have an Asus B350 Aorus Pro Wi-Fi, so I'm going to the Asus B350 Aorus Pro Wi-Fi website. The first thing we're going to do is download the Realtek audio driver. Now Windows actually includes a reasonably decent Realtek audio driver included, but we're going to download the real one here for our motherboard. It's an updated version. It's going to have a little bit more options and tools on the control panel versus, say, the default driver that comes with it. This here is optional. You certainly could get away without doing this. Now, what we do here is we simply right-click, drag, we choose extract. This uses Windows built-in zip file decompressing program. There it is. We click on it. Scroll this down till you find the setup.exe file. Run that. Yes, we have to hit yes, of course. That's the user account control. Close the rest of the windows. Let this run, install, and it is going to want a reboot. I am going to let this run in real time, and I'm going to take this moment to say that there are a bunch of other things that you can install on the Gigabyte website, and this is true of all the manufacturers' websites. I don't download everything. Certain things such as Intel LAN drivers I don't download because, frankly, look how fast that was. That was real-time, no editing whatsoever. In fact, I'll just let it reboot. Realtek LAN Wi-Fi drivers I'll sometimes download and install if there's an AS Media chip for USB 3.1 Gen 2 or perhaps additional SATA controllers. I will sometimes download those. But I try not to download everything because at some point you might actually end up installing older versions. So audio drivers, sometimes LAN drivers, sometimes Wi-Fi drivers. Beyond that, you can pick and choose as to what you want to do. Now we're going to go back to Gigabyte's website here. These are just some of the things. There's the Intel LAN drivers right there. We'll come down here to the WAN, WLAN, the wireless LAN because they have Wi-Fi built in. These I ended up not downloading and running. It runs just fine without them. There's the Bluetooth driver. Whether or not you want to install these is going to be highly dependent upon how up-to-date your version of Windows is and whether or not you care about using all those features. These are the Gigabyte-specific apps. We'll install the Fusion one here in just a second. First things first, this here is completely optional. Clean up your computer. Windows puts a lot of junk on here. Candy Crush Saga or Saga. Is that Saga? Saga. I delete that. I mean, certainly personal choice. Candy Crush Soda Saga, I delete. Adobe Access, I delete, etc. Hidden Cities, really, Microsoft are using up my valuable SSD storage space for this nonsense. I don't need Microsoft News. So I just go through here and delete some of the apps that Microsoft goes, yes, everyone should have on their computer. My Office, if I want to download Office, I will. Notice the ones that I'm deleting. I'm not deleting, for example, the Realtek drivers we installed. A lot of these you can't delete, like the Xbox stuff you can't delete, people you can't delete, etc. I go into gaming and I turn this off because I don't want that the game bar to automatically pop up every time I launch a game. The other thing I do is I come over here to Programs or Features, turn features on and off, and I turn on .NET Framework 3.5 and 2.0 and 3.0. This will get auto-installed when you do various things. But frankly, yeah, this will download automatically for you. I find it easier just to do it here. You're going to need it for something. Those are used by a lot of games and programs, so I just go ahead and get it out of the way by doing it right here. Once that's complete, close all of that, go back to the Aorus B350 website. Now, again, this is going to vary. We have to install the App Center. This is true across most Gigabyte motherboards, especially if you want the RGB Fusion software, and we do. Spoiler alert, it's really, really cool because it will sync the motherboard, the video card, and the RAM with one click, and it'll sync the effects. It'll sync colors, pulsing, static, music across the entire spectrum of RGB in your case if you want it to. If you don't, we have to install this App Center here. If you don't, you can do it per device. You can make the RAM one color, the motherboard a different one, the case another one, or you can just make it all work together. And it really worked really well. One click, boom, it was purple. And then boom, it was yellow. Well, kind of a off yellowish. Yellow is always a funny RGB color. Purple's bold, red's bold, blue's bold, green's very bold. Green looks really nice. And then, of course, you can have it pulse, color cycle, etc. When you're not running the software, everything's a little bit out of sync. The motherboard's a little out of sync. The RAM tends to run a bit out of sync. The 4 memory modules, the 2 genuine modules, and then the 2 dummy modules tend to be a bit out of sync. Run the software, and they are rock solid steady. Having done that, now we're going to scroll back up. There's the RGB Fusion software. Notice it says, please install App Center first. They mean it. It really doesn't work otherwise. We're going to go extract that and install it. Now, be patient with this. I was kind of surprised that 3 different prompts came up. The 7-zip self-extracting setup came up first. I closed these windows, and then that extracted. Another prompt, run update, came up, and then RGB Fusion came up. So, yeah, give it a second. There were some trims in there because this took a bit as it was kind of figuring itself out. This is the RGB Fusion software right here. It says, please wait. It's finding all of your devices. I'm not trimming this. This is how long it took to find the devices the first time. And there you can see the motherboard, the RAM, and the video card. Now, this is not a demonstration of this software because you can't see the computer, but suffice it to say you can do them individually here or back on the main screen. You can change the colors. There's a billion effects. You can play with this until you're blue in the face. And remember, there are 2 additional RGB digital headers on the board where you can install light strips and additional fans throughout your case. And you can have 5, 6 sources of RGB in your system. You can see the 2 digital LEDs right there. You can have a lot of RGB in this case. So I'll leave that for a future video. Quick note, this is what it looks like when you change the colors here. There's color cycle. Granted, you can't see the case, but I thought I just noticed I had this footage, so I'd show how it actually cycles on the screen. And what's happening in the case physically matches this perfectly. So it's very well synced up. And I have to say that if you want RGB, I really do believe that Gigabyte makes the best RGB in the business. The colors and the lights and the sync software, of all the RGB I've messed with, this has been the nicest I've played with. And the Windows setup guide is now complete. Hopefully you found that useful, informative, and helpful. It certainly was a long one. Now, there are certainly places in there that I trimmed or shortened sequences for time or accelerated them because otherwise we'd be here all afternoon. But the truth of the matter is it doesn't really take that long to do. Once you've done it a couple of times, the first time, take your time with it. As I said at the beginning of this video, a few of those things may differ if you use different hardware. You'd go to NVIDIA's website instead of AMD's website to download the drivers, for example, so those things are a bit different, but most of it isn't. Like this video if you like it, share it with your friends if you loved it. Remember to subscribe to my channel with the big huge red button directly below. Hit the bell notification icon next to the subscribe button if you'd like to actually be notified when I get new videos out. Click the join button next to the subscribe button if you'd like to support the channel directly. If you're not able to use the affiliate links down below to shop and support the channel, please consider directly supporting the channel. It would be greatly appreciated by hitting that join button. Or you can subscribe to me over on Floatplane using the link in the video description below. Questions, comments, thoughts, queries, posers, feedback, it's all welcome. Comment section down below. And then as before I mentioned, lots of links down in the video description below. Thank you so much for watching. I will see all of you next time.